To Module 2. This one's about odds ratios, a measure that confuses a lot of people because odds and risk sound similar but are mathematically different. By the end of this talk, you'll know exactly when to use an odds ratio, how to calculate it, and, just as importantly, how to interpret it without overstating what it means. The key distinction. Risk is the proportion of animals that get sick out of everyone at risk. Odds is the ratio of those who get sick to those who don't. When disease is rare, these two numbers are very close to each other. But as disease becomes more common, they diverge. This matters because odds ratios can overestimate relative risk when disease prevalence is high, which is a common misinterpretation in the literature. Ratios are the go-to measure for case control studies. Here's why. In a case control study, you deliberately select animals based on whether they have the disease or not. You're not following a population forward in time. That means you can't calculate true incidence or risk, but you can calculate odds. The odds ratio is also what pops out of logistic regression, which you'll see constantly in veterinary research. And when disease is rare, say less than 10% prevalence, the OR is a pretty good approximation of the RR. The formula. The odds ratio is calculated as A times D divided by B times C. This is called the cross product ratio, and it's a handy shortcut. You'll notice it uses all 4 cells of the 2x2 table. Interpretation is the same as the risk ratio. An OR of 1 means no association. Greater than 1 means the exposure is associated with increased odds of disease, and less than 1 means the exposure appears protective. Veterinary medicine, odds ratios come up in case control studies investigating risk factors for diseases like feline hyperthyroidism, canine lymphoma, or equine laminitis. They also appear in genetic association studies. One important caution. When you read an odds ratio in a paper, resist the temptation to say animals were X times more likely to get sick. That's technically only accurate when disease is rare. When disease is common, the OR will overestimate the RR, and that can mislead clinical decision making. Here's your practice problem. We have a classic case control setup, 60 hyperthyroid cats and 60 healthy controls. Of the cases, 45 were eating canned food. Of the controls, 25 were eating canned food. Build your table and calculate the odds ratio. Take a moment, then move to the next slide. Fill in the table. We have 45 cases that ate canned food. That's cell A. The remaining 15 cases did not eat canned food, cell C. For controls, 25 ate canned food, cell B, and 35 did not, cell D. Now we apply the cross product formula. 45 times 35 is 1,575. 25 times 15 is 375. Divide those. 1,575 over 375 gives us an OR of 4.2. Interpretation, cats fed canned food had 4.2 times the odds of developing hyperthyroidism compared to cats not fed canned food. Because hyperthyroidism in cats has a relatively low prevalence in the general population, this OR is a reasonable approximation of the relative risk, but would want to note that caveat in any formal write-up.